Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, Steve Smith, the bassist of the legendary British new wave act The Vapors, discusses the reformation of the band, their new album Wasp in a Jar, touring with From the Jam, self-releasing versus working with a label, their upcoming tours at the US and the UK where they'll be playing the Lost 80s tour in the US and supporting Big Country in the UK, the renewed relevancy of their debut album Nuclear Days in recent times, and much more.
Okay, hi.
Hey Steve, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. It's very nice to meet you. I'll try not to take up too much of your time. I want to talk a little bit about the Vapors kind of coming back. I mean, obviously, you were grouped almost about a decade ago now at this point. Does it feel that long that you guys have been back since 2016?
No, it doesn't really seem that long. I mean, initially, 2016, we only did 4 gigs, and in 2017, we probably only did maybe 6 shows. It was only really in 2017 that we really started to work a lot more. So, yeah, it's more like 7 years, really. But,
Okay.
but yeah, it doesn't even seem that long.
Did COVID kind of knock some of that time off? Because obviously, you released your kind of comeback album together in 2020 during the midst of the pandemic. Like, what was that like in terms of actually, finally, kind of having this new release out and then just the world shutting down?
Yeah, it was a weird one because we'd had the album finished since I think it was probably March 2019,
Hmm.
and it was scheduled for release in May 2020. So it had already been finished, but a year by the time it was going to come out. So, but then the record distributor said to us, "We suggest you postpone the album for at least 6 months because of the pandemic." But we were all like, "Well, we've been waiting a year for this to come out. We really want it to come out in May." Uh, and I think that kind of worked for us because so many acts cancelled their releases. It left a little bit of space for us to kind of like nudge our way in.
Yeah. And what was the timeline in terms of like what the Vapors were doing during that time? Because obviously like there was no opportunities for gigs or anything. So what were you kind of like doing in that time during the pandemic?
Really, we weren't really doing anything. We weren't allowed to meet up or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were just Dave was writing songs, luckily,
Yeah.
but yeah, we were like went months without seeing any of them really.
From your perspective, how do you think Dave has kind of changed as a songwriter? Because we're going to talk about your new record, which I was listening to, and to me, I don't know if you agree with this, but to me, it seems a bit more reflective, not nostalgic necessarily, but it seems like there's a bit of kind of like reflecting on time gone. How do you feel like Dave has actually kind of changed as a songwriter?
Well, he still writes loads of songs with really great hooks in them, and
Yeah,
he's still got away with a turn of phrase.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's actually an interesting point that you make, that you think his songwriting is a bit more reflective now, because I think you've got a good point there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I thought was interesting, one of the songs I wanted to highlight was Miss You Girl, which was, it really seems like the kind of song that the Vapors would have like released in like the early 80s, but now it's kind of takes on a bit of a different, I don't know, just with the passage of time, it kind of takes on a bit of a different kind of resonance, I think, where, again, there is that kind of like, he's sort of writing in the first person, and it seems almost I don't know. It seems like almost like a song that he would have written it back then, but then there's also a bit of kind of like acknowledging that this is from the past. Was Dave kind of like sitting on songs or these kind of like just all brand new and fresh?
Yeah, they've pretty much all were written since the Together album came out.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think that
we had like I think we had 20 songs that we demoed, and then we picked the best 14. We always like to do that, to
yeah.
have more songs than we need. So the ones that we don't think are quite up to it, we can leave off. We only really need 14 for a CD anyway. But the more songs you got to choose from, the better, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a bad
Yeah,
complaint to have too many songs.
they're all written since in the last 5 years.
Yeah. From your as a bass player, I mean, how do you find that your kind of style has changed or differed? I mean, do you find that your playing now is similar to when the band first began, or do you think it's changed or altered in any way?
No, I think I've changed and altered my bass style a little bit. I think I tend to be a little less busy with my playing, but yeah, leave some bits out rather than putting everything in. I just think I've matured as a bass player, really.
Yeah. Do you actually think that's part of the maturity is the idea of kind of like I guess serving the song rather than like trying to show off your dexterity?
Well, always the bass was always there to serve the song.
Yeah.
Uh, only and the mad bits only came in between in between the vocal bits. But yeah, but it was all most of the bass parts that I do just pop into my head. To be honest, they just pop into my head, and so I don't really have any control over them.
Do you reinvent the songs from yesteryear when you're playing them live now, or do you try to play them as you did on the record?
I tried basically. I tried to reproduce what's on the record. That's what I think what people want to hear, really, especially from the older stuff.
Yeah. One thing I really liked about your Reformation is that some of your first gigs back when you kind of regrouped was with opening from the Jam, and obviously the Jam were like a huge cornerstone in terms of getting you guys in front of audiences back in the time where you were kind of playing like pubs and clubs, and then suddenly you're playing these like big theaters opening for the Jam. Did it feel kind of like full circle to do that tour with them?
Yeah, it did. It did, especially because Bruce is still in from the Jam, and Bruce was the guy who discovered us, and Bruce managed us for a while as well. So,
Yeah.
and I've kept in contact with Bruce over the years, and I still see Bruce socially. So, yeah, it was really great. We love those boys. We had such a fun time touring with them.
Yeah, Bruce is like such a distinctive bassist. Like, yeah, I think as soon as you hear him, you know it's him playing because he's obviously played in other bands since then, like Syphil Fingers and such. And
Yeah,
he always
yeah,
just brings his own like style to it. You know what I mean? It's just like you just know it's distinctively him.
yeah, and that's like the best, the finest accolade you can pay to him, really, isn't it? That
Yeah.
you know it's him straight away when you hear it. I mean that is a real compliment.
One
But
thing,
it's
sorry.
also true. I agree. I agree.
One thing I want to talk about a little bit actually is kind of like the Vapor's place now in the kind of the music industry. I mean, obviously there was a huge sabbatical, I think about 45-year sabbatical between regrouping and your previous record in 1981. So I was wondering, how do you find like the kind of music climate has kind of changed since the Vapors have kind of been out of the spotlight?
Obviously, everybody uses a lot more technology these days. Most bands have got some kind of backing stuff going on. I mean, even we do a tiny bit of that. I think we got one song where we run a bit of something on, or not on tape, obviously, because tape
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore in that field. Uh, but yeah, mainly the technology is different, and I don't think there's so many bands around as there used to be.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's interesting about digital, as you were mentioning, is that it kind of gives potentially kind of infinite amount of possibilities to record and to kind of mess around, for lack of a better term, to actually kind of try and find what it is you're looking for. Have you found the kind of switch from tape to, sorry, from analog to digital to be advantageous to what you're doing, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the democratization of music, really. I mean, anyone can go and buy a computer for a few hundred quid and a music program for 100 quid and start making records. Really good
Yeah.
quality stuff, and you can do that in your bedroom. And we've done a few singles where we've just basically recorded them ourselves and mixed
Yeah.
and produced them ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously now you're self-releasing your music. I mean, would that have even seemed like a possibility when the Vapors first began in terms of actually getting kind of international distribution? I mean, it seemed like you had to be on a record label.
Oh, you did, yeah. I mean, and nobody knew how to get into a record label. The Vapors were just a small band from Guildford, which is like 40 miles from London.
Hmm.
And we were just a little band playing around, and I knew the songs were really good, and I knew we were a good band, but no one had a clue how to get into a record company.
Yeah.
And because without a record company, you couldn't really do anything then.
Yeah. Do you find now it's better to have that kind of like, I guess, self-determination? I mean, when the Vapors were going, I mean, did you have much push and pull from the record labels that you're working with, or were they pretty content to let you make the music you wanted to make?
Yeah, we're pretty much left to make the music. Um, yeah, they didn't really interfere in the music, I have to say.
Yeah. How do you feel now? Like the people are kind of coming back. I mean, to the Vapors. I mean, when you play live, is there like new people in the crowd, like young people who are kind of like discovering, maybe going to see the Vapors for the first time? And how does that kind of feel to know that the music has had like such longevity even as you were away?
Yeah, it's brilliant. There are there's really an amazing amount of young people that come to the gigs, and it always amazes me.
Do you think that like just good music persists?
Yeah, I mean, most of them I talk to they just say, well, we're looking for something other than what there is around at the moment.
Yeah.
We're
Do
just looking for something more real.
Well, I know that you guys played festival. I think it was in Vegas, if I'm correct, and it was kind of like it was a big. Obviously, you're going to be touring the States in the summer. It's a big tour, kind of like bring back kind of like a lot of the acts from the '80s. How do you feel about that? I mean, do you think it's nostalgia, or do you think it's just good music persisting?
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah,
Nostalgia is a very, very powerful thing. You hear a song or the intro to a song, and instantly you're back when that record was out, and
yeah,
it's a powerful thing. And the thing I love about the '80s shows is you see different generations of people. You can see little kids with their parents and grandparents, and
yeah.
they're all dancing around digging the same band, and it's actually kind of a really nice thing. We did it in 2019, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Do you find now like with the new music that you're putting out, obviously your new album that's coming out, Wasp in a Jar. To me, when I was listening to it, well, I thought your previous record together had a real great continuity between the years. I mean, I almost felt like no time had passed at all. It felt like the next album you logically would have released, like if you released an album say in '83 or
Yeah,
something. It
yeah,
feels like together would have been that. But Wasp in a Jar, I find really goes in a very new direction. It's much more, I think, rock and roll, but it's obviously laden with ballads, and it seems to be like a real sense of experimentation. I was reading the press release for this record, and you guys kind of mentioned that that wasn't an intentional thing. That was just kind of organically what came out.
yeah.
Um, what do you think of the sound on this compared to the other Vapors records?
Well, this one was recorded in a different way. It was much more about the three of us me, Michael, and Dan, the guitarist, were in the studio room, and
Hmm.
then in the control room where we could see Dave through this big panel of glass was Dave singing, and we basically played the songs live.
Yeah,
And if we made any mistakes, we tried to fix them by playing over them and dropping in and dropping out rather than digitally fixing it. And so we recorded very much as we would have done in 1979 or 1980, really.
yeah,
Whereas when we worked with Steve Levine, Steve was much more into the kind of computer side of things, shall I say?
yeah. So, how do you find the kind of sound on this one is different? I mean, because like I do get that sense. Like it really does feel like I think a lot more raw and a lot less um produced. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like a very strange thing to say, but
No, no, I think you're absolutely right. That is basically you've summed it up there. It
yeah,
just it's a bit less produced
yeah.
and a bit more organic, like you say, and a bit more. I just think Mike Giblin captured the energy really that the band were giving off.
Do you find that now when you play gigs live, I mean, obviously you're incorporating the new music. It's not just like sticking to the songs from your first
Yeah,
two records. Do you find that now people are as equally appreciative of the new songs as they are the ones that they knew from yesteryear?
yeah, really. The Together album is very popular. People like a lot of the songs from that album. They like us to play them.
Yeah. I guess like one of the fun things I was going to ask is a little bit about the song "Carry On." This was my interpretation. I just wanted to get your read on it, but it's about it's a statement on the kind of current political climate. But I was also wondering if it also is somewhat about the band itself.
You'd have to ask Dave that, but
Okay.
yeah, because he writes the lyrics. But he all of his lyrics, he says, it's whatever you want it to be. It's whatever you interpret it as it to be. My interpretation is, yeah, it's just like people are just like can do like really mad things, and people just carry on
Yeah.
as if nothing's happened, if nothing matters, and it's really quite a simple song for me in terms of what it means. But it is incredible that people can do so much stuff and then it just gets completely forgotten.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I think is really interesting about kind of the passing of time is that when you look at your first record, Nuclear Days, it's kind of come back as being it's weird. It's like in a circle. Like that album, I think, has become kind of prescient again because obviously at the time that it was written, it was sort of during the kind of post Cold War tensions of like the USSR and the United
Yeah,
States. And now it seems like we have like and there was a while where the threat of like nuclear war wasn't really on people's mind anymore, but now it seems like
it's back.
that's
Yeah,
yeah. Do you find that the stuff that you guys have released just through the passage of time ends up having prescience?
yeah. It's just yeah, it's amazing that we started playing the song Cold War again live. And Dave was going, I wrote this song in 1978 or something, and
Yeah,
nothing's changed. We're
yeah.
still in the same situation. It's still going on.
Do
Um,
you think there's any hope for in the same way that like those things move past thankfully without any kind of nuclear fallout? Do you find that um having lived that kind of gives you any confidence for what we might be going through in the present day, or do you think it's all just up in the air?
I think it's literally all up in the air. Yeah, really. I have
It's a
no
sad
idea.
thing for
I have no idea what's going to happen in the next 4 years.
yeah. Um, I want to follow up. I just want to finish by plugging this tour you have coming up. So you're doing the UK tour. You're doing some headline shows and then some shows supporting Big Country.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously that's like again, Big Country are another band who just really like persisted and are still around. I mean, do you find like you're doing tours with like peers, or how do you kind of view yourselves in that kind of dynamic?
yeah. I mean, I like doing tours. I really love it. You build up a relationship with the other band. I've made so many friends on tours that I'm still friends with now. So I love them. I love touring. I don't mind if we're supporting or headlining or in a big bill with 10 other bands, whatever
Yeah.
it is. I like playing.
Perfect. I guess, yeah, I guess, the final thing I'll just ask is kind of like what can kind of people expect if they pop along to those shows?
Well, we'll be playing, I would say, a good few songs from the new album on the UK tour.
Yeah.
Uh, some songs off the new album on the Big Country tour. And,
Yeah.
probably no songs off the new album on the Lost 80s tour because they want the old songs, obviously, from the 80s.
Oh, so you kind of like mix and match the set list based on where you're playing?
Yeah, it depends what the show is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair. Thanks very much for your time, Steve. Is
It's
there
been
anything
nice
you'd like to
chatting,
add
man.
before we wrap up?
Sorry?
Is there anything you would like to add before we wrap up,
Yeah, I
or?
just wanted to say one thing is the new album, actually, one of the songs, Proud,
Yes.
was up for the Together album, but didn't quite make the cut that time.
Yeah,
So
that was another one that I noted, that
that's
and
it.
Together Again.
All the other ones are new ones, but I was thinking that one's not. That one's that's from the last album sessions.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, Steve.
Hey,
I really appreciate that.
hey,
And
cheers. Take it easy, yeah.
yeah, you too. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.